Hey guys, Sam from West Meadow Rabbits here. It is currently about 3 degrees out, so I figured today, before I go to work, this would be a great time to make a quick little video on rabbit water in the winter. It's actually pretty straightforward, not as time consuming as you'd think it would be. So as most of you probably know, I use these aluminum crocks. This is the size of my hand for scale. From Bass Equipment, although you can use pretty much any brand. The main thing that I like about these aluminum crocks is that since they're metal, I can bang them out if if there's only a little bit of ice in them. And if there's a lot, I take them inside to thaw them, which they thaw out real quick. And again, they're not going to shatter from temperature changes, unlike some other materials. I'll show you the thawing in a sec. Basically, everybody out here gets one crock per cage. And moms with babies or litters, or about to have litters, you need more water, get these larger crocks, which are actually pretty big. Now, this may not seem like a lot of water, and they're gonna freeze in this kind of temperature in about, 1 or 2 hours, but the surface freezes first in about 15 to 20 minutes, depending. So they won't usually lick through the ice to get the water unless they're really thirsty. That may seem like a bad thing, but believe it or not, not the only times, but rabbits drink the majority of their water while they're eating, because they're eating obviously very dry food, unless you're feeding fresh food, obviously. But in the winter, most of that stuff is going to be dry. You've got hay and you've got pellets, which are both really dry foods, and they need water to kind of digest it, get it to break down, get it to go through their digestive tract. So my rabbits are on a schedule. I feed a handful of hay in the morning, and then I feed their pellets at night. And at that same time is when I give them the water. So they have fresh water while they're eating. So they get about 90% of their water needs during those two times. And, you'll see in a minute here when I put the crocks in how quickly they drink. So they drink that up, they eat some, they drink again. So they get roughly 2 drinks in before it freezes, which is more than enough to get them through the winter. Winter's never ideal, but this system works for me. If I had all of my rabbits in a, cage-like system like this, where they've got, nice orderly lines and everything like that, I would probably be using an automatic water system. And also if power was a little closer out here. But since I've got, a couple rabbits out here in this experimental hutch, if you will, few rabbits in there and a few rabbits in there. I'm not using it right now. Theoretically, I could use 2 smaller systems, but again, power access is somewhat of an issue for me, and I just don't want to deal with it. Hopefully one day when I rebuild everything from the ground up in a nice single barn, I will definitely be using an electric heating system. But for small scale, these crocks are more than adequate if you're in a place that gets a hard freeze. I've got roughly 11 holes occupied. If you don't know, holes means cages. So I'm not counting by rabbit, I'm counting by cage. And, this, sometimes I'll have a little more, but that's usually about my winter volume. And this takes me about 15 minutes to do, including feeding the hay. So it's really quick. If you're at a smaller scale, it's even quicker. If you've got 4 or 5 rabbits, or 4 or 5 holes, I should say, this should be no problem. And if you're in a place that doesn't freeze solid every night, you can also get a pretty quick routine going. You don't need to take these things inside to thaw them. For example, usually they'll just have a little bit of ice on the surface if it's only, hovering around 32. Then you can just take it, bang it out, the water will come out, and then I just put fresh water in there. I usually use hot water when there's a little bit of ice in here and I'm refilling it rather than hard thawing. I know there's a thing out there that says hot water freezes faster than cold water. That's not been my experience, but it sort of cancels each other out because the crock is cold, there's a little bit of ice in it. When you pour the hot water in, the water basically instantly goes to 50 degrees instead of being as hot as it was, and it melts the ice. So it works out for me. Now I'll show you what thawing looks like, and then I'll show you topping off the waters. So after I get the crocks into the orange bucket, I bring them inside. I basically put them all in this sink, run some hot water. They actually thaw pretty fast. I mean, you see, even if just getting exposed to hot water, most of the ice chunks fall out. So the name of the game really isn't to try to fully thaw the ice chunks. It's just to get the ice to fall out. And then I put them back in the orange bucket. And this seems like it's a hassle, but it really only takes 5 or 10 minutes, not even, to get these things thawed. While they're thawing, I have my green watering can filling up with water in the other sink, and usually by the time that thing fills up, because it's about 2 gallons, which I don't fill it all the way, but by the time it's filled up, these are mostly thawed, and then I just start putting them into the orange bucket here. Okay, so normally I'd be doing this much quicker, but since I'm filming a video, I'm just gonna show you. First thing I do once I've thawed everything off is I pop these back in empty. It's not worth the hassle trying to fill them up outside. I put them close to the edge of the cage. Then I get my watering can here, and I'm trying to do this one-handed. It'll usually go better. And then I just top it off. She's one of my thirsty girls, so you can see first thing they do when you get the hot water is they go and drink it, which is good. I want that. So she's drinking it right now. She's taking advantage of it. She's thirstier than some. This girl's not really interested. He's not really interested either. But yeah, you've got different rabbits. They'll be thirsty different times depending on how much they drank last night. Maybe they didn't drink a lot. You never know with their moods. So like I said, I would be doing this a lot faster, but I'm trying to do everything one-handed. So yeah, I find it's easier just to fill from the outside. Always do that. And again, you're going to notice I'm pouring really hot water in here. Now, why am I doing that? To me, I'm not sure if it freezes faster. I'm pretty sure that's just a wives' tale. Supposedly the water evaporates, but which decreases the volume, which then makes it freeze faster. But it cools off so quickly out here, you're not losing much. But the main reason why why I give them hot water, it's sort of like my gift to them. You know, when it's really cold out, there's nothing better than a nice cup of hot cocoa or hot tea or maybe even hot coffee if you like that. I do. And that warms you up. So basically, these are small animals. By ingesting hot water, that's sort of warming them up. It's saving them some energy from having to warm themselves up. And conversely, if you give them cold water, especially cold water that's just above freezing, that's like, you know, basically swallowing ice, and the same reason why it's not good for rabbits to eat snow as a water source. It is a water source, but they're going to have to burn calories to maintain their body heat from putting that cold fluid into their body, which means that they're going to need to eat more. In order to eat more, they need to drink more because they basically are limited by how much they can eat in the winter by how available water is, which will also affect your growth rates as a side note. So essentially, you've got to kind of balance that out there and remember that the more your rabbit eats, the more it needs to drink. And if you're giving them cold water or snow, that means that they need to eat more on top of that. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it is going to decrease your efficiency. And they really like the hot water. You know, I mean, who doesn't like a nice warm cup of hot water on a 2-degree day? Ooh, sorry. Girl behind me is mad. Also, just look how freaking pregnant she is. She is actually pregnant with Californians. We're going to be discussing... the buck was a Californian. She's in New Zealand. So we'll be discussing hybrids when she gives birth pretty soon. And yeah, that's the name of the game. If you watch my video about rabbit genetics, there's the bitch. That's the name of the game when it comes to rabbit water. It's very simple, very straightforward. The system isn't perfect, but again, if you're in an area, you know, it's cold right now, but you know, sometimes it hovers around 30 degrees, which means these things won't even freeze in like 8 hours. So I just come out, dump the water, and refill them again. It's much quicker than thawing them. If you have a system where everything's not spread out and you've got some kind of indoor shelter like this, but a little bigger, I would highly recommend a, see, she's done drinking, so she got right back to eating, which we can see is that's why the water is important. But she's done now. She'll probably eat, drink once more, and then it'll freeze. I digress. If you have an indoor shelter like this, I highly recommend, you know, getting some kind of automatic heated watering system if you've got more than a few rabbits. If you've got only a few rabbits, it's really not that hard. It's not worth the effort and money to put in an automatic system. Just stick with the metal crocks. They'll serve you well in the brief time where it's freezing. And yeah, I'm going to finish up here and get to work. That'll about cover it for today. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.